62 people. That is the exact number of individuals who own more wealth than the bottom half of the entire human population combined, 3.5 billion souls. The gap isn't just widening, it's being engineered by design, ensuring that while you work harder for a currency that buys less, the elite are playing a game with entirely different rules. I'm Alex. This is Wealthonomics, where we expose the financial system the wealthy don't want you to understand. By the end of this video, you will see the invisible architecture that keeps you in the hamster wheel while the 1% build dynasties on your debt. Staying until the final segment isn't just a choice. It's your first step toward financial literacy that actually matters. This divergence didn't happen by accident. We have to look back to August 15, 1971. The day the global financial game changed forever. When President Nixon ended the convertibility of the US dollar into gold, he effectively decoupled money from reality. This Nixon shock transformed our currency into a debt-based fiat system. This mechanism allowed for infinite credit expansion, which sounds like growth but is actually a hidden tax. Real institutions like the Federal Reserve began a cycle of inflation that benefits those closest to the printing press, the big banks and asset owners, while devaluing the savings of every college-educated professional. Since that 1971 pivot, worker productivity has skyrocketed by nearly 250%, yet real hourly wages have remained almost flat when adjusted for inflation. This isn't a lack of effort on your part, it's the Cantillon Effect in action. This economic theory explains that those who receive new money first, the financial elite, can spend it before prices rise. By the time that money trickles down to your paycheck, its purchasing power has already been cannibalized by inflation. The system was designed by architects at Bretton Woods to favor capital over labor, ensuring the rich stay rich by owning the assets that the poor must rent or buy with depreciated hours. The primary weapon of the elite is a strategy known as buy, borrow, die. The wealthy don't sell their assets to fund their lifestyle. They buy appreciating assets like real estate or stocks, and then they borrow against them. But here's what your financial advisor will never tell you. Selling an asset triggers a capital gains tax of up to 20% or more. Borrowing against that same asset? That's tax-free. By using their wealth as collateral, the rich can access millions in liquidity without ever handing a dime to the IRS, while you're stuck paying 30% in income tax just for showing up to work. To execute this, the ultra-wealthy use a specific tool called a securities-backed line of credit, or SBLOC. Institutions like Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley provide these low-interest loans to their high-net-worth clients, allowing them to live like kings on debt that costs them 3 or 4%, while their assets grow by 8 to 10%. The part they deliberately don't teach in school is that debt is only a burden for the poor. For the rich, debt is a tax-advantaged fuel. While you're told to pay off your mortgage and save for a rainy day, the elite are leveraging every cent to buy more of the world you live in. The cycle reaches its peak with a loophole called the Step-Up in basis under Section 1014 of the Internal Revenue Code. When a billionaire dies, their heirs inherit those assets at their current market value, not the original purchase price. This effectively wipes out decades of capital gains taxes. Here's the thing that keeps middle-class families trapped generation after generation. You are taught to build a nest egg to spend, while the wealthy are taught to build a fortress to pass on. You are playing a game of accumulation. They are playing a game of structural preservation. Everything I just told you is accurate and documented. But there's a dimension to this story that almost no financial content creator covers. The rich aren't just hoarding money. They are hoarding access to alternative assets. While you are restricted to the volatility of the public stock market, the 0.1% are invited into private equity, venture capital, and hedge funds that are legally off limits to you. This information gap is the real barrier. By the time you hear about a hot stock on the news, the real money has already been made by the people who owned the company before it went public. This exclusion is enforced by the SEC's accredited investor rules. To participate in the most lucrative deals, the ones that actually create generational wealth, you are legally required to already have a net worth of over $1 million or an income of $200,000. It is a legal gatekeeping mechanism that ensures the best opportunities are reserved for those who are already winning. Private equity firms like BlackRock and KKR have consistently outperformed the S&P 500 for decades. Yet the system treats you as too uninformed to handle that risk, effectively forcing you to stay in the slow lane while they use the fast lane. Furthermore, the rich utilize the velocity of money better than any other group. They never let a dollar sit idle. Through sophisticated entities like family offices, they move capital from one tax-advantaged vehicle to another, using depreciation in real estate to offset gains in other sectors. While you see a luxury apartment building, they see a giant tax shield. They use cost segregation studies to front-load tax deductions, effectively getting the government to subsidize their acquisitions. They aren't smarter than you. They are just operating with a manual that you were never given. This institutionalized advantage extends to the legal system itself. The wealthy don't own anything in their own names. They use complex webs of LLCs, Nevada or Delaware trusts, and offshore entities to protect their wealth from litigation and inheritance taxes. If you own your home in your name, you're a target. If you own it through a trust, you're a ghost. This layer of protection ensures that even in economic downturns, their core wealth remains untouched, while a single medical emergency or lawsuit can wipe out 3 generations of middle-class savings. The system doesn't just favor the rich, it protects them. To break this cycle, you must stop being a consumer and start being a clinical operator of your own capital. Your first step is to shift your mindset from saving to acquiring. Stop putting all your liquidity into accounts where it loses value to inflation and starts identifying tax-efficient assets. Look into self-directed IRAs that allow you to invest in more than just mutual funds. Research how to use infinite banking concepts or small-scale real estate to create your own credit loops. The goal is to move from the income column of the tax code to the asset column as fast as humanly possible. This isn't just about numbers on a screen. It's about your freedom and the legacy you leave behind. The system wants you tired, debt-ridden, and compliant because that is how the machine stays lubricated. But once you see the strings, you can't unsee them. The frustration you feel when you look at your bank account despite your hard work is not a personal failure. It is the sound of the system working exactly as it was designed. It is time to stop being the fuel and start being the engineer. The stakes are your life, your time, and your family's future. 3 things to take from today. First, debt is the elite's primary tool for tax-free growth. Second, the accredited investor rule is a legal barrier to the best wealth-building assets. Third, assets must be owned through structures, not personal names. Remember those 62 people from the beginning? Here's what that actually means. They aren't 62 times harder working than you. They just have 62 times more structural leverage. Next on Wealthonomics, the middle-class trap nobody talks about. If this changed how you see the system, subscribe. The next one goes deeper.